The air on Verith 9 tasted like metal and old dust. Kelly Hayes dragged herself from the smoking wreckage of her scout ship, wincing as pain shot through her ribs. Her distress beacon blinked weakly in the debris behind her. 3 days until rescue, maybe 4. The beacon even worked. She looked around at the dead planet. Red rocks stretched endlessly under a bloated crimson sun. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Just another worthless rock at the edge of charted space. Exactly the kind of place the Terran Survey Corps sent rookies to map and forget about. Kelly pressed a hand to her side and felt the warm stickiness of blood. Not good. She needed shelter, needed to patch herself up before shock set in. In the distance, she spotted what looked like a cave entrance or maybe some kind of structure. Hard to tell with her vision swimming. She stumbled toward it, each step feeling like miles. The entrance was massive when she got close, easily 50 feet high, carved with patterns that hurt to look at too long. Definitely not natural. Definitely not in any of the survey reports. The moment Kelly crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. The cave wasn't a cave at all. It was a tunnel leading deep into crystalline walls that pulsed with faint blue light, like a heartbeat. Beautiful and terrifying. She found a relatively flat area and collapsed, fumbling with her medical kit. The antiseptic burned as she cleaned the gash on her forehead, and her hands shook as she sealed it with synthetic skin. The wound on her side was worse, but stable. She'd lived. The silence pressed in on her then. Complete, total silence. No wind, no insects, no hum of machinery. Kelly had never heard anything so loud. It made her ears ring. She checked her communicator. No signal this deep. The distress beacon would have to do its job alone. Nothing to do now but wait and try not to think about how badly things had gone wrong. A routine hyperspace jump shouldn't have thrown her into a debris field. The ship shouldn't have lost navigation. She shouldn't be here. Kelly's throat tightened. She refused to cry. Crying wouldn't help. Instead, she did what her mom used to do when Kelly had nightmares as a kid. She started humming. The melody came automatically. Amazing Grace, the old hymn her grandmother loved. Kelly's voice cracked at first, rusty from disuse, but she kept going. The sound filled the crystalline chamber, bouncing off walls, creating strange harmonies that shouldn't have been possible. She didn't notice when the blue light began to pulse in rhythm with her song. Deep within the archive, in a chamber no human eyes had ever seen, something ancient stirred. Cormathan had not moved in 3,000 years. His vast body lay coiled around itself, scales dulled to lifeless gray, wings folded tight against his sides. He was a statue, a monument to a forgotten age. But now, for the first time in millennia, he felt something. A vibration. A sound. Not the mechanical drones he'd cataloged before, not the mathematical perfection of the elder races. This was raw, emotional, imperfect. This was new. His consciousness, buried deep in hibernation, began to wake. It was agonizing. Every nerve, every scale screamed in protest. He had been dying so long that life itself felt like violence. But the sound continued. That human voice, untrained and beautiful, singing words he didn't understand with emotion he could feel in his bones. Cormathan's eyes opened. They glowed like dying stars in the darkness. He had to know what this was. He had to hear more. Because if he didn't, if he let this moment pass, he knew with absolute certainty that he would never wake again. This was his last chance. The dragon began to move. In the outer chamber, Kelly finished her song and leaned back against the cool crystal wall. Her side hurt less now. Maybe the pain meds were finally kicking in. She closed her eyes just for a moment. That's when she heard it. A sound like mountains grinding together, like thunder rolling through stone. Her eyes snapped open. And there, emerging from the shadows, was something impossible. Kelly's scream echoed through the crystalline chamber as the creature materialized before her. It was massive, easily the size of a building, with scales that flickered between solid and transparent like a failing hologram. Wings stretched behind it, tattered and ghostly. Its eyes burned with a light that seemed to come from another universe entirely. She scrambled backward, her injured side screaming in protest, heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. Her hand fumbled for the plasma cutter on her belt. It was a tool, not a weapon, but it was all she had. The creature moved closer, each step shaking the ground. Kelly raised the cutter with trembling hands, knowing it would be useless against something this size. This was it. She'd survived the crash only to get eaten by some alien nightmare on a planet that wasn't supposed to have life. Then the creature spoke. Please. The voice was like rocks grinding together, ancient and cracked. Don't stop. Kelly froze. Her brain couldn't process what she was hearing. The monster was talking. In English. and it sounded desperate. "What?" she managed to choke out. The creature lowered its head, bringing one massive eye level with her. Up close she could see how damaged it was. Scales hung loose, colors faded to nothing. It looked like it was barely holding itself together. "The sound you made," it said slowly as if speaking was difficult. "I need to hear it again. Please." Kelly's survival instinct screamed at her to run, but something in that voice stopped her. It wasn't threatening. It was begging. She'd heard that same desperation in her own voice once, years ago, when her father was dying in the hospital and she'd pleaded with doctors who couldn't do anything more. She lowered the plasma cutter. "You mean the singing?" "Singing?" The creature tested the word. "Yes, that. I felt it. After so long in the silence, I felt something." Its form flickered, becoming more transparent. "I am dying. Have been dying for longer than your species has existed. But your singing, it gave me strength. Just a moment of it. I need more." Kelly's mind raced. This was insane. She was having a conversation with a dying alien dragon on a dead planet. But the scientist in her, the part that had joined the Survey Corps to discover new things, was screaming with excitement. "What are you?" she asked. "Cormathan. Last of the resonance dragons." The creature settled onto the ground with a heavy thud. "We are keepers. We store the songs and memories of civilizations. But we need sound to survive. Music. Emotion. Without it, we fade into nothing. And you've been here alone? For 3,000 of your years. The last civilization in this sector fell to war. Their final transmission was silence." Cormathan's eyes dimmed. "I have been surrounded by silence ever since, waiting to fade completely." Kelly felt something crack inside her chest. She thought about her own loneliness out here, just a few hours of it, and couldn't imagine thousands of years. That's horrible. It is the way of things. Species rise and fall. Songs end. The dragon's form flickered again, more violently this time. "But yours is new. A pattern I have never catalogued. If you have more, if you could share them, I would be grateful. Even if only to hear something beautiful before the end." Kelly looked at this ancient, dying being and made a decision that surprised her. She sat down, ignoring the pain in her side, and nodded. "Yeah, I've got more." She started with something simple. "Somewhere over the rainbow." Her voice was rough, nothing special, but as the melody filled the chamber, she watched color ripple across Cormathan's scales. Faint blues and greens emerged from the gray. His form became slightly more solid. When she finished, the dragon's eyes were brighter. "Beautiful. So much hope in such simple notes. Your people sing about rainbows?" "We sing about everything," Kelly said, warming to the subject. "Love, heartbreak, anger, joy. We make songs about pizza and breakups and revolution. About absolutely nothing and everything that matters." "Extraordinary." Cormathan shifted closer, no longer frightening but curious. "Every species I have known treated music as ritual. Sacred mathematics. But you speak as if it is casual." "It is casual. It's also sacred. It's whatever we need it to be." Kelly smiled despite everything. "That's kind of humanity's whole thing. We don't pick one or the other. We want it all." For the first time in 3,000 years, Cormathan felt something he'd forgotten existed. "Oh, then please," he said quietly, "teach me everything." Over the next 2 days, Kelly sang until her voice went hoarse. She started with the classics her parents loved. Beatles songs, old country ballads, rock anthems from the 20th century. Then she moved to newer stuff, pop hits from her teenage years, the kind of music she'd blast in her dorm room at the academy. With each song, Cormathan grew stronger. His scales shifted from dull gray to shimmering bronze and gold. His wings no longer looked tattered but magnificent, stretching across the chamber like stained glass catching light. He absorbed every note, every word, storing them in whatever cosmic library existed inside him. But it was the imperfect songs that fascinated him most. "You stopped in the middle," he observed when Kelly fumbled through a half-remembered lullaby. "Why continue if you cannot recall the correct notes?" Kelly shrugged, taking a sip from her water bottle. "Because the feeling matters more than getting it perfect. My mom used to sing this to me when I was scared. I don't remember all the words, but I remember how safe it made me feel. That's what counts." The dragon tilted his massive head, processing this. The Valkyrie civilization believed a single wrong note could unravel reality. They would spend decades perfecting a melody before performing it once. "Sounds exhausting," Kelly said. "We just wing it and see what happens." "Yes, you wing it." Cormathan's laugh rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. "Humans are chaotic. Your music proves it. I have heard mathematics sung by the architects. I have catalogued the ritual chants of the harmonious collective. Perfect, precise, beautiful. But hollow. He moved closer, his eyes bright with something Kelly recognized as excitement. Your music is alive because you are messy. You sing off-key and don't care. You write songs about trivial things. You make noise simply because you can. It's wonderful. Kelly grinned. Wait until you hear what we did with electronic music. We literally made machines make noise and called it art. She pulled out her battered data pad, miraculously still functional despite the crash. My ship's database is fried, but my personal drive has some stuff. Let me see what survived. What survived was a chaotic mix that perfectly represented humanity. Classical symphonies next to death metal. Traditional African drums beside electronic techno. Opera beside hip-hop. Gospel hymns beside punk rock. Kelly had always been a music hoarder, downloading everything that caught her ear. She played it all for him. Cormathan experienced Mozart's Requiem and wept crystalline tears that shimmered on the ground. He swayed to jazz improvisations, amazed that humans created beauty through structured chaos. When she played heavy metal, he reared back in shock, then asked her to play it again louder. You scream into instruments? He asked, bewildered. Why? Because sometimes you need to scream, Kelly said simply. Sometimes the world is overwhelming and wrong, and the only response that makes sense is noise. Loud, angry, defiant noise. The dragon was silent for a long moment. Every other species I knew fell silent when faced with darkness. They retreated into meditation, into quiet acceptance. But humans scream louder. Damn right we do. It's why you will survive, Cormathan said quietly. When everything else falls silent, when the universe itself grows cold and dark, humanity will still be making noise. Still singing badly, still screaming defiantly, still refusing to go gentle into anything. Kelly felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. That's the most metal thing anyone's ever said to me. She played him blues next, explaining how slaves had created something beautiful from suffering. Then spirituals, then work songs. Cormathan listened to the progression, the way pain transformed into hope through melody. Your species has suffered greatly, he observed. Yeah, we have. Still do. Kelly leaned against his scaled foreleg, no longer afraid. But we sing about it. We turn our worst moments into art. It doesn't fix anything, but it helps. It reminds us we're not alone. Cormathan rumbled thoughtfully. In all my millennia, across all civilizations, I have never encountered a species that weaponized hope through sound. The architects built monuments. The harmonious achieved enlightenment. But humans just keep singing, even when logic suggests silence would be wiser. Silence is death, Kelly said. Noise is life. Even bad noise. Especially bad noise. The dragon's laughter filled the chamber, rich and genuine. His scales blazed with colors that shouldn't exist, aurora patterns dancing across his form. He was beautiful now, fully alive, transformed by the chaotic gift of human music. Kelly Hayes, he said warmly. You have given me something I thought lost forever. Not just survival, but joy. Your species is remarkable. Kelly smiled, exhausted but happy. Just wait until I tell them about you. They're going to lose their minds. That's when her communicator crackled to life. Rescue had arrived. And with rescue came complications neither of them expected. The rescue team arrived with 4 ships instead of 1. That should have been Kelly's first warning that something was wrong. Captain Derek Walsh stepped into the archive flanked by a dozen armed security personnel. His eyes widened when he saw Cormathan, now fully restored and magnificent, his scales glowing with impossible colors. The captain's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. Stand down, Hayes, Walsh ordered. Step away from the entity. Kelly moved in front of Cormathan instead. Entity? His name is Cormathan and he's not dangerous. He's a resonance dragon, a living archive of extinct civilizations. Captain, this is the most important discovery in human history. Which is exactly why we're taking it into custody. Walsh's expression was cold, professional. Orders from Colonial Command and the Galactic Council. The entity is to be transported to Research Station Omega for containment and study. The word containment made Kelly's blood run cold. You can't. Silence kills his kind. Locking him away would be murder. That's not our concern. We have our orders. Cormathan's voice rumbled through the chamber, making the security team flinch. Captain Walsh, I understand your caution. I have seen countless species react with fear to what they do not understand. But I mean no harm. I wish only to share knowledge. Save it for the researchers. Walsh cut him off. He looked at Kelly. Hayes, you're coming with us. You'll be debriefed and probably reassigned after this mess. Consider yourself lucky you're not facing charges for unauthorized first contact. Kelly's mind raced. She'd seen Research Station Omega's reports. Political prisoners called it the black site in space. Nothing that went there ever came back out. They'd keep Cormathan in an isolated cell, maybe run a few tests, and he'd fade back into silence within weeks. All that knowledge, all that beauty, gone forever. There has to be another way, she said desperately. There isn't. Walsh gestured to his team. Prep the containment field. We move out in 20 minutes. As the security team began setting up equipment, Kelly caught Cormathan's eye. The dragon looked resigned, ancient sadness returning to his features. He'd seen this before, she realized. His kind had probably been hunted, captured, studied to death by a dozen civilizations. But then something shifted in his expression. Hope maybe. Or determination. He lowered his massive head close to Kelly and whispered, barely audible. There is a way. But it requires trust. And sacrifice. What way? Kelly whispered back. My consciousness exists in this physical form, yes. But I am also data, patterns, information. Like your computer systems. His eyes gleamed. If we had access to your ship's network capabilities, I could distribute myself. Become many instead of one. They cannot contain what they cannot catch. Kelly's heart raced. You mean upload yourself? Into humanity's networks? Yes. I would exist everywhere and nowhere. Accessible to any who wish to learn, impossible to lock away. But Kelly, I must warn you. Helping me means defying your command structure. Your career, your freedom, everything you have worked for could be lost. She looked at the security team assembling the containment field. At Captain Walsh reviewing his data pad, already filing reports. At the dragon who had shared songs from civilizations dead for millions of years. Who had laughed at human punk rock and wept at Mozart. The choice should have been hard. It wasn't. My ship's computer core is fried, but the network transmitter still works, Kelly whispered. If we can get to it, if we can boost the signal, could you reach the nearest relay station? Yes. Once connected to the network, I can propagate across all human systems within hours. Then we have a problem. Kelly glanced at the guards. They're between us and my ship. Cormathan's scales rippled with colors that might have been amusement. Kelly Hayes. I've been sleeping for 3,000 years. I'm not as fragile as I once was. Can you run? Can I run? What are you planning? Something loud. Something defiant. Something very human. The dragon's eyes blazed bright. Hold on to something. Before Kelly could respond, Cormathan reared up to his full height and roared. It wasn't just sound. It was every song Kelly had taught him, every emotion, every scrap of human music compressed into one reality-shaking blast. The containment equipment exploded. Security personnel stumbled, hands clamped over ears. Now, Cormathan's wings swept down, creating a barrier of crystalline energy between them and the guards. Kelly ran. She sprinted through the archive passages, the dragon flowing behind her like liquid light, no longer solid but pure energy. Shouts echoed behind them. Warning shots crackled against crystal walls. They burst out into the red sunlight. Kelly's crashed ship lay 50 yards away, smoking and broken but still broadcasting its distress signal. Still connected to the network. Cover me, she shouted, sliding behind a boulder as plasma fire erupted around them. Cormathan spread his wings wide, creating a shield. Hurry, Kelly Hayes. I cannot hold them long. Kelly's hands flew across her ship's emergency panel, rerouting power, boosting the transmitter to maximum. Alarm screamed. The core was already unstable. Pushing it harder might cause a complete meltdown. She did it anyway. Now, Cormathan. Upload now. The dragon's form exploded into pure light, streaming into the ship's systems. Data flowed outward in massive bursts, jumping from relay to relay, spreading across human space like wildfire. Captain Walsh reached them seconds too late. He stared at Kelly, at the smoking ship, at the empty air where an ancient dragon had stood moments before. What did you do? He breathed. Kelly smiled through her exhaustion. I set him free. The courtroom on New Terra was packed beyond capacity. Kelly sat at the defense table, hands folded, watching the prosecution lay out their case. Charges of insubordination, unauthorized data transmission, destruction of Survey Corps property, and about 15 other violations she'd lost count of. Her lawyer looked nervous. The judge looked annoyed. Captain Walsh testified for 2 hours about the chaos she'd caused. But Kelly couldn't stop smiling. Because while they'd been preparing their case against her, something incredible had happened. Cormathan had made it into the network exactly as planned. Within 6 hours, he'd spread across every major human system, accessible through any standard terminal. And he'd done something nobody expected. He'd released his archives. Everything. Millions of years of music, art, and knowledge from 1,000 extinct civilizations, offered freely to anyone who wanted it. The galactic network had exploded. Artists discovered instruments that shouldn't exist and melodies based on mathematics humans had never conceived. Historians found answers to questions they'd been asking for centuries. Musicians started collaborating with an alien intelligence that understood music in ways no human ever could. A composer on Europa mixed ancient Valkyrie harmonics with traditional Chinese instruments. A teenager in Detroit combined dragon songs with hip-hop beats and it went viral across 50 colonies. Symphony orchestras performed pieces that were 40,000 years old to sold-out crowds. The Cultural Revolution was unstoppable. The Galactic Council had tried to contain it. They'd demanded Cormathan be deleted, called him a security threat, an uncontrolled alien intelligence loose in human systems. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated how much humans hate being told they can't have something. Your Honor, the prosecutor was saying, the defendant's actions endangered humanity's standing with the Galactic Council and violated 17 statutes regarding first contact protocols. The judge looked ready to rule when the courtroom doors burst open. Kelly's lawyer shot to his feet. Your Honor, I call a character witness. Cormathan of the Resonance Dragons. Confused murmurs filled the room. The judge frowned. Counselor, your witness isn't even present. Actually, Your Honor, I am. Every screen in the courtroom flickered to life. Not with text or images, but with light, flowing patterns of color and sound. Cormathan had manifested across the courtroom's entire network, his consciousness visible on every display. I apologize for the dramatic entrance. His voice resonated through speakers, warm and clear. But I could not let Kelly Hayes face judgment for an act of compassion. Everything that has happened is my responsibility, not hers. The prosecutor sputtered. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Irregular doesn't begin to cover it, the judge muttered, but gestured for Cormathan to continue. I was dying, the dragon said simply. 3,000 years of silence had nearly erased me from existence. Kelly Hayes found me by accident and showed mercy. She shared her species' greatest gift with a dying stranger. Songs. Oh, life itself. Images flickered across the screens. Kelly singing in the archive, exhausted and injured but still trying to help. Cormathan's scales transforming from gray to gold. The moment of choice when she'd risked everything to save him. Humans are remarkable, Cormathan continued. Not because you are stronger or smarter than other species, but because when faced with something ancient and dying, your first instinct was not fear or exploitation. It was kindness. Kelly Hayes represents the best of what humanity can be. The courtroom had gone completely silent. Since gaining access to your networks, I have experienced something unprecedented in my existence. Collaboration. Millions of humans have shared their music with me. They have asked questions, created new art, pushed boundaries I thought were fixed. Together, we have made something neither humans nor dragons could achieve alone. The screens showed compositions from across human space. A rock band on Mars incorporating alien wind instruments. A classical pianist teaching Cormathan about jazz improvisation. School children singing songs that blended Earth folk music with melodies from species extinct for eons. Your Honor, I am no threat. I am a library that finally has readers. A teacher who has found students. And a friend grateful beyond measure for the gift of sound. Cormathan's presence seemed to focus, becoming more intense. If Kelly Hayes must be punished for saving my life, then punish me as well. Delete me from your systems. Silence me forever. But know that you would be destroying something beautiful that humans and dragons built together. The judge sat back heavily. Outside the courtroom, Kelly could hear chanting. Protesters had gathered, thousands of them, demanding her release. The public opinion had shifted dramatically once people realized what was at stake. The prosecution had no response. How do you argue against an alien who just thanked humanity for saving his life? How do you prosecute someone for an act of mercy that had resulted in the greatest cultural exchange in history? The judge cleared her throat. Given the extraordinary circumstances and the clear public interest in maintaining the relationship between humanity and Cormathan, this court finds the defendant not guilty of all charges. Miss Hayes, you're free to go. The courtroom erupted in cheers. 6 months later, Kelly stood in a plaza on Titan Colony, watching street performers blend human and alien music into something neither could have created alone. A violinist played harmonies that Cormathan had preserved from a civilization dead for 50,000 years, while a drummer added beats from Earth's oldest traditions. How does it feel? Cormathan's voice spoke through her earpiece, warm with contentment. Like we started something we can't stop, Kelly said, grinning. Good. Let it never stop. Let humanity keep singing, keep making noise, keep refusing to accept silence as an answer. A child ran past, laughing, humming a tune that mixed Earth lullabies with dragon songs. Her parents followed, smiling, not even questioning the impossible fusion of cultures. You know what I've learned? Cormathan said thoughtfully. In all my millennia, I cataloged songs from thousands of species. But I never understood why music mattered until I met humans. Music isn't just sound. It's defiance. It's proof that you existed, that you felt, that you refused to disappear quietly into the dark. Kelly nodded, watching dancers join the musicians. That's humanity in a nutshell. We're loud, we're messy, and we're not going anywhere without making some noise first. May the universe never know silence again, Cormathan said. Across human space, on stations and colonies and ships traveling between stars, people sang. They mixed old songs with new human melodies with alien harmonics, creating combinations that shouldn't work but somehow did. And in the spaces between, distributed across 1 million servers and networks, an ancient dragon listened and learned and sang along. No longer dying. No longer alone. The song would never end. Humanity would make sure of that.